Okay, Tashi, do you want
Okay,
to start?
okay. You can highlight Judy.
Yes, I will in a second.
Okay, okay. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And no need to repeat Judy Leaf's bio, which we talked about last week, um, except just to remind us that she is the person who actually closely edited almost all the readings that we've done for this entire 7.5 month course. So it's really wonderful to have her back with us again. So welcome back, Judy Leaf.
Thank you, Tashi. Welcome back to all of you.
So, should we start with the 5 minute meditation?
Yeah. Good morning, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Great. So today's topic is the paramitas. They are the activities of a bodhisattva. It is about putting our inspiration and our practice into action. How do we work with the Dharma in the midst of everyday life and activities, work and relationships, and all of those things that occupy us throughout the day? So we've talked in the past, and you've been doing a lot in the Datuns in terms of deepening your meditation practice on the cushion or chair. And this teaching is about then what do you do with it? How do we apply our own training to help other people? So the paramita practice is within the Mahayana tradition, the second jhana. Mahayana is a great vehicle. Sometimes it's referred to as the Bodhisattva path. So the Bodhisattva, what is that? Bodhi means awake. Sattva is a being, awakened being. Sometimes it's translated as compassionate warrior, indicating a courage of actually participating in the world in a full and open way. So I wanted to start with just a brief reading, which I happen to like, so I wanted to share it. And it gives a sense of uh, kind of a feeling for what we're going to be talking about. And this is from the volume 2. It says, Paramita practice is the essence of how to be a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is someone who is brave and utterly and thoroughly involved in the discipline taught by the Buddha. Bodhisattvas are ideally soaked in the water of helping others in every way. So it's a very high order, you could say. And the other thing I think is important, excuse me, to realize when we're talking about the paramitas, sometimes they're translated as transcendent virtues or perfect virtues, um, but they're not the same as ordinary ethics. And I think that's what we'll be exploring a little bit. So we'll go step by step. So we're in the Mahayana. We're talking about Bodhisattva activity, applying our aspirations in actions. When you take the Bodhisattva vow, you're aspiring to do your best to live your life as a Bodhisattva. But how do you do that? And the way you do that is by practicing the paramitas. So that's called aspiring to be a bodhisattva and actually attaining that or living that through actual behavior and practices. When the word paramita uh, basically means it's crossing over, as in crossing over a river. In this case, crossing over the turbulent river of passion, aggression, and ignorance. It's a way of crossing over, attaining some kind of fresh ground that's not based so much on duality of self and other, not so based on crime and punishment, reward and blame. Finding another basis for ethical action that's not our usual. You'd get to go to heaven or sent to hell or get awards or punishment. Uh, it's coming from a different kind of place. And I think that's important in terms of, well, how is this so different. When you list out the paramitas, whether you're talking about 6 or 10 or however many, they're very ordinary. Generosity, discipline, patience, exertion, meditation, knowledge. So those are so what you might say. Everybody says that it's what makes it transcendent, what makes it a paramita, what makes it cross over confusion and self-regard into something more vast and true. You Trungpa Rinpoche described paramitas. He says as techniques of non-grasping, which I found a really interesting way of describing them. Techniques of non-grasping. So in the process of trying to follow the Bodhisattva path and work with things like generosity and discipline, etc., at the same time, we're kind of unraveling some kind of attitude of attainment and grasping, as opposed to action that has no leaves no trace. The actions that are done simply and then completed without leftover, without looking for confirmation, without looking for praise, without fearing blame. It was kind of spontaneous action coming out of deep training, a spontaneous action that's uh, um, sort of like there's no second thought. You just do the right thing and forget about it. To put it really crudely. But there's that sense of so much of the time we're looking over our shoulders, like, are we being noticed? Are we being good? Are we being good people, etc., and trying to please the dominant view of what is a good person? But this isn't based on that kind of thing. It's responding directly to a situation by having cultivated a sense of openness and compassion or friendliness. So I'll say a little bit about each one. But non-grasping basically means letting go of territory or credentials, letting go of trying to be good or trying to be bad. Uh, uh, Letting go of needing to be the person who comes in and saves the situation, that heroic in the sense of building a persona of helper or accomplisher or wise person or whatnot, without a persona, in a simple but profound way. When actions are done in this way, in a paramita kind of way, I suppose you could say, they don't have that weight. They're not heavy, they're light. Bodhisattvas are said to be operating with a light touch, less ego, a light touch. Sometimes it's talked about in terms of pure actions, threefold purity. There's no actor particularly. It's not coming from, I am helping you. Me, I'm helping you. It's more a response coming evoked from a need of the moment. And you can say there's no actual act to speak of. It can separate out. And there's no person being helped. Threefold purity. There's no solid kind of moralistic energy involved. It's a more fresh and light. In fact, the traditional entry into Mahayana mentality is a sense of lightness and kind of getting over ourselves, our self-importance, our striving, even our sense of trying to be a good Dharma student, however you want to put it. A sense of relaxing and lightness, which is also connected with glimpses of emptiness. The true source of the Bodhisattva activity is simple energy of openness and possibility and warmth or compassion that's infused within the emptiness, and emptiness is infused within the action. Um, some of the paramitas are based on application or energetic ones, and some are more wisdom ones. So compassion and wisdom are expressed within the way the paramitas are structured. The first paramita is generosity, generosity. And that's really the ground of all of the activities. So here, it's not simply that you are like a philanthropist, and so you give away a lot of money, that kind of thing. But there's a vastness of mind, a mind to contain uh, multitudes, uh, and a sense of expansiveness. And you could think of this as thinking bigger, maybe, a sense of broad concern, benevolence, and also a sense of able to hold experience fully. So generosity comes from a sense of richness that's not necessarily material wealth, but a sense of almost a sense of not feeling depleted or incapable or uh, poverty stricken and mentally poverty stricken or emotionally poverty stricken, a sense of having kind of a wealth to offer and a sense of offering and joy in offering. If you think of a person who inviting someone over to your house for dinner or something like that, there's an enjoyment, reveling almost in being able to offer abundance to your guest. So there's a sense of that in other aspects of life, in all aspects of life, a sense of welcoming. There's room for you. There's room for others. They're noticed and they're included. So generosity is a very powerful quality within all the paramitas. The ground for all of them is being willing to engage, willing to invite others into your space, so to speak. Uh, Trungpa Rinpoche gave the example of willing to let 100 hippies camp in your living room, which is a strange example, but it was kind of what he was doing in the early days. It actually has its roots in the obscure origins of Trungpa Rinpoche's journey in North America. So generosity. And in working with this, all of these can be worked with, even as just beginner practitioners or newer practitioners. You can say, well, it sounds like a lot that you have to come from emptiness and pure actions and deep compassion, but it's like chicken and eggs. You develop those by working with these, and you work with these by developing those. Um, and generosity said it includes material generosity. If someone is hungry and you give them food. It also includes teaching the Dharma, offering Dharma, and also includes providing some kind of confidence to people, seeing the wealth in others. Um, and there's a way to examine our own patterns. People are very different. Um, how do you feel when you're given something? How do you feel when you've given something to others? Some people really have a hard time receiving generosity. Others feel much more challenged by offering generosity. There's kind of a fear of depletion or something. So observing, we can observe how we react, um, and learn from that, practice it. It's always opportunities, lots of opportunities for that. So the second of the paramitas is called discipline. And that's a hard word for many people. It feels to be put in a cage or something like that. Discipline is more of a refined paying attention to the details of how do you actually go about your day and the need to pay attention. Um, so there's kind of the particulars of how you go about acting and out your aspiration to become a bodhisattva. Discipline involves kind of boundaries, setting boundaries around your actions and working in specific ways rather than generalized ways is specifically what you do. You may have lots of sense of wanting to help, but discipline means that you actually break that down in ways that you can actually accomplish step by step. It's sort of reining in a certain way. The kind of clarifying. Sometimes these are talked about together. Generosity being so opening out and opening out all the time, opening bigger, broader, including more and more. But sometimes they have to kind of then clarify and focus. So this one is having some kind of focus and persistence, I suppose you'd say. All of these require some kind of persistence. So generosity, we're working with our kind of stinginess and poverty mentality. With discipline, we're working with kind of a sloppiness and kind of a haphazard quality. So we may have intention to do a helpful thing, but they don't go about it in a way that actually works because they might lack discipline, not wanting to actually do the work to figure out the steps that we need to take. The third paramita is patience. Patience is said to be the antidote to aggression. Sometimes it's talked about as antidote to speediness. When you're rushing through life, rushing through our actions, rushing through our relationships, we kind of lose the whole essence of being present. When we're not cultivating of patience, it's that we basically, the speediness and aggression is the uh, blinding to our own experience and blinding to actually touching the experience fully, being able to stick with the experience. It is not like a stupid patience where you just sort of say, it doesn't matter, I'll just sort of sit here and endure it, things. But there's a quality of resting and letting what needs to be done arise from the situation instead of enforcing and pushing our interpretation onto things so quickly, our strategies so quickly, so much into our project sometimes of trying to be good, trying to do the right thing, trying to be a bodhisattva. that it blinds us to actually seeing what might actually be needed in the current moment. So that's patience. So that's a lot to work with already. So we're working with our stinginess, our poverty mentality, our sloppiness, our impatience, our aggression. Um, and then the next of the paramitas is exertion. Exertion, that's pretty obvious. Yeah, to have to show up. You have to show up and you have to do the work. Um, sometimes it's easy to get too philosophical, and you can go on and on talking about compassion and talking about friendliness and talking about awareness and talking about all these wonderful things that are part of the Buddhist teachings. And meanwhile, you're not doing anything, not doing anything. Rinpoche used to use the phrase, words don't cook rice. I don't know if that's a traditional phrase or he made it up, but the idea is you have to actually work with the paramitas. You have to be willing to actually engage, even though you might make mistakes and even though you might not succeed. The sense of being willing to mix it up, an acknowledgement that the world is a very messy, and our world of human realm and confusion and chaos is a messy world. So it's hard to practice or work with the paramitas if we're too protective of our special kind of safe position. That we have to actually exert and engage and mix it up with the world. That's what compassion has to be put into action. And hopefully the idea of the paramitas is these actions are informed with a kind of a light touch view, a sense of openness and possibility, uh, uh, and also some intelligence and training. That's what these are for. But they're not just training just to do it because we want to be trained. They're training in action. They have to actually test it all the time. Paramita is about testing it. It's what you say and how you live. Is there any connection? How do you test your understanding? Um, it's easy to feel we have a lot more understanding than we do when we never test it in real life, so to speak, not in a protected situation or special situation, or not just in our mind on the cushion. But as we encounter difficult things and uplifted things and challenging things and losses and gains and struggles and all of those things, in the midst of that, with difficult people and people that you care about and their struggles, it's being able to actually engage and not hide out in any way. Exertion is putting all of this into action. Sometimes exertion just means showing up, same as in discipline of meditation. We don't always feel like practicing, but exertion means, well, just show up. You don't have to wait until uh, you're really totally sure what to do. You have to do something. So these four, generosity, discipline, patience, and exertion, are all very much engaged in action. They're the how to energize and put into force training in with others. They're all very interactive and relational based. Mahayana is very much based on relationship. It's not just an individual journey. It's how we relate to one another, how we relate to the environment, how I relate to the world, relationship based. And the final two paramitas, meditation and wisdom, are kind of more the vision. They're like the eyes, and the first four are like the limbs or the legs and arms and tools and things like that. So there's a section of which direction we're pointing towards. Meditation is, in this case, it's a sense of coming from a settled mind, a settled and clear mind. So combining of the mindfulness awareness, so settled peacefulness and clarity. So not acting out of agitation of mind, but coming from a still ground and a clear ground. So actions have some context other than just reaction, back and forth and back and forth. So much we do is just reaction. And sometimes, reaction without proper grounding or any clear vision. And meditation is cultivating the foundations of both being able to settle the mind, come from a still place, and also coming from a real insight into not just our mind, but insight into situations, insight, paying attention, noticing. Notice clearly enough, then the response arises. If we notice clearly enough what the need is. And finally, and this is kind of ridiculously vast topic to touch on in a ridiculously short time. But the final paramita is Prajna Paramita, in which there are volumes and volumes of writings that people far more wise than I am. But the idea of Prajna Paramita is a transcendent wisdom. It is that aspect of direct, intuitive understanding that is the birthplace of all the Buddhas, all the realizations. It's the deepest level of of that's kind of knowledge. It's a supreme knowledge, a kind of knowledge as a force in itself, as opposed to often we talk about knowledge of this or that. I read this book and now I know something about biology or whatever. This is knowledge that doesn't isn't a personal possession, and it's not based on having a particular topic of knowledge. It's a force of seeing clearly, seeing through deception of any kind. It's the knowledge that allows us to kind of, I suppose you could say, cut through the veils of conventional thinking of predefined reality into more direct seeing, directly seeing. It's a kind of a wealth of a river of understanding available all the time. And what guts us, any of us, to do anything, but particularly to follow the Dharma, some kind of deep knowing that's hard to define because it's a knowing without a knower or something to be known. It's a different kind of kind of a source, kind of like a source knowledge underlying all of this teachings. They're called prajna, and it's infused with, it's sometimes seen as kind of a pair, this deep knowing and compassion, but they really are looking at the same things different ways. They're deep, deep level of that can be kind of pointed to or touched on through these kind of activities of trying to pursue the paramita practice and the aspiration to be greater help in the world, the greater help. That the practice isn't really in Mahayana, it's not just about you. There's only one reason to tame yourself, and that is to be better able to help. Because the world, people need a lot of help. You need a lot of help. I need a lot of help. We all need that. So how to always hold that aspiration in mind. Whether it's think about its aspiration to emulate the great bodhisattvas of wisdom, compassion, and skillful means, or the I guess you'd say aspiration to rouse your friendliness and your compassion over and over again whenever you sit down to practice, whenever you start to study, whenever you engaged in something challenging, always coming back to these fundamentals, the sense of deep knowing and deep love, deep compassion, touching into those streams of only reliable energies that are there and can be drawn upon when we need to. So I think that's probably all I can say for now. It's just a real uh, 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 kind of hopefully inspire you to study these more. But I think the main thing to know is, or to question, to look at is what is it when we do things, what is our motivation? What are we trying to do? And how do we um, avoid just doing things out of habit or ignorance or self-interest or further feed for the ego. These actions, benevolent actions, actually can be actions that at the same time unravel the kind of tightness and they call overprotectiveness of our ego fixation, and just draw us out of that, which is like out of under a rock into kind of a nice, beautiful, clear day. It's coming out of the what they often, begrudgingly try to be good. This actually is not that at all. It's finally letting go of trying to be anything and letting the actions speak for themselves. So that's a little introduction to the paramitas.
Thank you so much, Judy. And before we break into the rooms, I just want to mention that we have three Chinese speaking rooms today, is 1, 2, and 3, and there is one Spanish group, number 4, and Portuguese is number 5, and everything else is English speaking groups. And if you end up in the group that you want to change, just go to the breakout rooms icon on the bottom panel and choose the room you want to be in. Is she here? I don't think so.
Hi,
What?
Jennifer. Are you here somewhere?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. But why do we need to share screens in the discussion groups?
Oh, she's here.
Okay. Uh, well, I'm making you co-host. I did make you co-host, Jennifer, so you can rejoin the breakout group now.
You can go to group 3 now,
But
Beth.
you are muted, so if you're trying to tell us something we don't hear.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I can do. Yeah, earlier I couldn't. Okay. So I need to go back to room 5, right?
3.
Three.
3.
3. Oh, sorry, room 3. Second. Sorry, because they're very quiet, so I prepare something for discussion.
Okay. I see. I was thinking like, why do you want to share?
And no
But
one's talking.
I see, I see. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
okay, see you.
see you.
姐姐，我现在不能说话。
Wait, you're still in the main room.
You have to go to room 3. You go select breakout groups or yeah, now she's gone.
Mhm. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Let's see if we have any questions. Please don't hesitate to raise your virtual hand or post them in the chat. Roberto, I will give you the co-host right now. So if you start your video, I can highlight you.
I see that Roberto has a hand up.
Okay, great. You can unmute yourself, Roberto.
Hi, Roberto.
Hello, thank you for these wonderful teachings. Well, my question is about generosity and no, actually, my question is what is the relationship between the paramitas and the Eightfold Noble Path taught by the Buddha? And because in the Mahayana tradition, we always, or most of the time, we emphasize, I don't know if that word exists, but emphasize, we give importance to the paramitas, but most of the time we don't talk very much about the Eightfold Noble Path, right? But
Mhm.
what is the relationship between the paramitas and the Eightfold Noble Path?
Okay, interesting thought. I mean, for me, that brings up the importance of how, at least understanding Trungpa Rinpoche's approach, that he went systematically through the yanas. So the paramita practice assumes in the having gone through the Hinayana path with the precepts, etc. Hinayana path is all about, right view and understanding, right actions, livelihood, etc. Working with the body, speech, and mind, and kind of refraining from harmful actions, like taking the precepts of not killing, not lying, not stealing, and working with the fundamental question of how to be a dharmic person. What does it mean to cultivate a dharmic lifestyle? So all of that is connected with the one. There's different ways of looking at it, but the I guess you could say the equivalent and the foundational vehicle for the paramitas is what you're saying, that the path is how do you apply things is the Eightfold Path. That's talked about in different ways in different traditions, but basically it has to do with your body, speech, and mind, taming them all, and working with them, and cultivating awareness and kindness, and some skill, greater skill in life, and refraining from the kind of harmful actions that arise habitually because of the kleshas and the emotions and mistaken views um, being I suppose you could say, coming so much from the viewpoint of self-preservation and self-enhancement that colors everything. And the foundation begins to expose all of that, and provides the ground from which then from that ground, then the paramitas are much more outward directed, outward and relational directed. So taming yourself, it's in order to be able to then be able to better extend out to others. So they kind of go together, so they don't just come out of the sky, out of nowhere, the paramitas. They come out of assuming that the basics is already dealt with. We've already begun to understand ego and how it works. We've begun to habit of examining ourselves and analyzing, cause and effect, and how our actions, um, um, how much they're programmed, so to speak, by neurotic foundations, and how they could be liberated a bit from those. And so that's how I see it. That they're definitely connected. Yeah. But the importance of, um, we're always working on all these. We talk about things separately, but we're always working on things organically, what in terms of the situation calls for. But that I think that notion of the ground, uh, working with that sufficiently is one thing to do good actions and accomplish a lot, but it's also good often just to stop doing things that are harmful because the foundation here is all about refrain from this. You don't have to do everything you think you have to do. You don't have to actually follow every impulse that arises in your little head. You can actually boycott certain harmful actions. So um, there's a really good teaching in the first volume on characteristics of a dharmic person, which I think might be helpful in terms of that question. But anyway, yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah. Michael,
Hi,
you're up.
Judy.
Hi.
I was thinking about the paramita of discipline in the context of meditation, and particularly with regard to contemplation. I haven't come across that much in my study and practice, but I feel like it's really important, and I would just like to know more about the role that contemplation would play in the context of the paramitas.
Mm-hmm. Well, the contemplative practices, and I assume you mean by that contemplating particular topics, like we do, or things like Tonglen practice and the working with the contemplating friendliness and compassion and like the four or contemplating the four reminders, etc. The So unlike the formless meditation, it's focusing on particular topics. And I think that it's particularly important in the Mahayana that the contemplative practices become so important. For instance, especially Tonglen, sending and taking, contemplating the four immeasurables, of uh, friendliness, compassion, um, uh, joy, and equanimity. So another way of looking at that is it's contemplating those qualities, but also the importance of contemplating our actions, our own actions. Because there's emphasis on engaging in the world and doing our best and not being afraid to mix it up, in the world when they see there's a need. But then being able to then reflect on what works and what doesn't work, what the effect was and what the effect wasn't. So it's like that. There's a slogan that says two activities, one at the beginning, one at the end. Suggests we contemplate all the time in a way. It's like wake up in the morning, have some reflect on what we might want to challenges of the day or what we plans of the day. And at the end of the day, as a habit, as we go to bed, just reflect even briefly on, well, how did we mix the day with the Dharma? How do we bring our activities to the path? What did we learn? And then start fresh the next day. Okay, what did we work on today? And at the end of the day, say, okay, how did that go? Or tried to do something. Did it work? Did it not? Why? So there's a lot of emphasis on analysis, both in that sense of the compassion, analyzing our actions and reflecting on them, not in terms of judging, but more dispassionately, just trying to learn. But having that quality of continually um, examining what comes back at us as teaching and extending the sense of all of those things we're doing. The paramitas are not just accomplishments, they're actually ways to learn. By working with generosity, we learn a lot about, what kind of, uh, holds us back and where do we are afraid to go too far or, we're learning all the time. So it's not that we're even though they're called perfections of, it's not that we have to be, we're not perfect. So we're working with that um, quality. So
Do you recommend combining meditation with contemplation, or should they be done separately, or does it matter? Or
um, I think it's always good to wrap everything with formless meditation in the sense that if you're going to contemplative practice, to first settle into formless, more formless meditation, just kind of grounding and relaxing and clarifying it to to the extent we can, just sort of settling, and then engaging in contemplative practice where, say it's Tonglen or whatever it is, contemplating joy or happiness or compassion or contemplating whatever, and then at the end letting that go and resting a bit with just resting the mind in meditation. To me, that softens things because it can get kind of heavy-handed sometimes when it's easy to say let's contemplate uh, our actions uh, dispassionately, but often then we start falling into all sorts of heaviness like regret or shame or pride or all the kind of things that come up when we contemplate what we've done. And so to just let that go, just let it dissolve. It's almost like a visualization, starting from emptiness ground, and then contemplating, then let it go. Uh, that's what I think is helpful. It's not that you have to have a long meditation on either side, but I think in general, I think it's good to start that way, to start from clearing the mind somehow. And that can be a on the spot practice as well. When we're up to launch into something difficult, we can actually pause. We can actually try to come from that space of more the attitude of openness and possibility rather than from the tightness and fear and, you know, panic. Yeah. Which is,
thank you.
that's okay. I'd like to call on this person whose name is in Chinese, so I don't know how to say it. I'm very sorry. Could you introduce your name?
Is it Mao? Can you unmute yourself?
Yep. Yep.
现在能听到吗
Oh, okay.
OK 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 Miss Judy I I Judy I really like you and really want to practice according to the logans of the Lojong teachings, but I have a problem. I have encountered a person who is extremely arrogant and rude to me, to my family. If I follow the Lojong Mehu, I cannot focus on his fault, nor can I argue or reason with him, because I need to cut through attachment to self. But at such times, I feel very upset inside. How should I handle this situation without increasing my ego? Thank you very much.
I think I understood the question of that with the Lojong practice is very demanding that way. And it can sound like, well, what do you do when you really have difficult either situation or person in your life that no matter what you do, you can't seem to um, uh, does Lojong practice make it harder to handle that kind of situation, or is it better? And I think that the one thing about the Lojong approach is that it can help us see our fears and our feelings of inadequacy in a less judging way. You can see some things are very difficult to handle, and we can't force ourselves to be able to handle everything that we encounter in our life. So one thing is that I find it's very helpful when I have a difficult people, difficult situations that are hard. It helps me to be able to at least step back a tiny bit and not take things totally personally when someone is being mean or harmful or whatnot, and sort of recognize that also the recognizing kindness to myself that I may not be able to help. I may need to step away and accept that I can't help or solve everything that I encounter, every situation, and how. But I don't know. It's not. Um, it's it. I don't know what to say because it's hard situations are hard situations, and it's not a cure. The Lojong practice doesn't make things other people change or others. We can hardly make ourselves change, let alone figure out how to make other people be more reasonable or less mean. But we can at least build up uh, our ability not to. I'm gonna in English you say buy into uh, how others are treating us or viewing us. The sense of your own goodness, your own worthiness, your own, you have some glimpse of a possibility that no one can take away from you, no matter if you're in a horrible situation or not. A sense of self-sufficiency of kind that can touch into. But there's no way I can say that your situation you can just fix. We can't. Many things is that they can't fix, and it's really painful. All right. So how do we deal with the situation? It says, how do we bring even hard stuff? How do we find the Dharma in that? And how do we kind of use those situations that are hard to actually be means of helping develop ourselves further? Uh, how do we kind of first notice the situations where we get so caught, and then how do we begin to extract ourselves and not be so easily kind of sent off course, so to speak, lose our heart, what we know. But I'm sorry, I don't feel I can make things better. But within things not being so great, hopefully I can make it not so much it's not really, you're not to blame for how other people treat you. Yeah. Ano? Is
Hi.
that pronounced right? You have the
Yeah,
right
I know.
Ano or I know? I know?
I know. Yes.
Okay, but I want to say it right.
So first of all, I would like to say how grateful I feel for your teaching and thanks a lot. Really, that's something I really want to.
My honor. My honor. Yeah.
And I've got two questions. I try to make it short. One question is that from the video material shared with us, Trungpa Rinpoche talked about the first thought. And he said, the first thought is the best thought, but it is at the same time not the best thought. So I would just want to hear what you what you would say something about that, and how the 6 parameters is related with this first thought. That's my first question.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, he talked about that a lot, and it's also in the title of his book of poetry, First Thought, Best Thought. And it's in terms of the Mahayana path, it's kind of like what I was saying a couple of questions ago, I think maybe to Michael, the sense of coming from a fresh mind. Before we land on an interpretation or decide yes or no or forward or backward, there's a fresh quality of mind. Um, and that's that's where we can discover more prajna. Like I haven't talked that much about the prajna, but it comes in those fresh mind, not in our thinking mind or conceptual mind. And sometimes that's talked about in terms of bodhicitta. If you read about the bodhicitta, which is the mind of awakening, there's a sense of absolute bodhicitta, which is in Tonglen practice, is part of Tonglen practice, that you just try to clear the mind. You clear the mind and start fresh over and over again. Fresh start and fresh start. Because what happens is that our thinking and our emotions, our habits, they become very stale. They're not fresh at all. They're just automatic pilot so much of the day. We say, okay, blah, 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 and they check this off and check this off, and then the day goes by. And how to kind of connect over and over again to that freshness so that it's almost like so your actions have room to breathe. They can they're not under your control in the same way, you know. So that's the thing about fresh mind. It's not a thought, it's not a plan, it's not an agenda. It's none of those. It's like the moment before, just before anything arises, or moments between gaps, between thoughts, between situations. Like sense of finding that's the real ground. And he emphasized that in so many different ways that especially I think if we try to be good students, right, and we're trying to do things right, but that can actually get in the way sometimes, and because it's about us, how to get over that. Mahayana is all about getting over self-fixation and thinking more of others. So I kind of come from fresh place.
So the 6 parameters all of them has something to do with the first thought, right?
They all come from that ideally. That's what makes them. Remember when he said, because they have many levels, right? And the one level is just totally ordinary. Your grandmother would say you should be more generous and more patient. That's not so big deal. Why make a big deal about that? It's that quality that you're talking about that is transformative. When things arise from that kind of fresh ground, they're less about projects you're doing or working yourself or self-improvement and all those kind of things. They're coming from a different place, which is that fresh spot, which is less invested. We invest in our activities. We want them to work. We want to be noticed. We did the right thing. We don't want to be noticed when we didn't. We have all sorts of layers and layers of interpretations on things. So quickly lose a sense of freshness. And so how to reconnect with that over and over again. There's a slogan that says, whatever you meet unexpectedly, join with meditation. That has that quality. And we can, it kind of encouragement that we can actually do that. It's not complicated, but it means we have to pay attention
Effort.
in a different way.
Yeah.
Almost
Okay.
like dropping effort of dropping effort or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the
Okay, thanks.
fever.
Uh, My second question is not really much related with today's topic, but I'm just curious because I overheard one of the old student, one of somebody Mache's old students, that when you were young and you were a student of Harvard University, and once you read the book of the cutting through the materials of him, then you just drop the books on the roadside and join the community. Is that true?
No, that's not me. Yeah,
Not you. Oh, okay. I thought
that
it
was
was you. So it was
no,
very
that was
big move.
it's a great story, but it's not me.
Oh, I see.
When
Okay, I
when
need to
I
ask
when
somebody
I
else
met
then.
when I met Trungpa Rinpoche, I had not read any of his books.
Oh, okay. So now it's so great to talk to you. Thank you.
Judy, there are a few questions in the chat, but let me just find the one I really wanted to ask. Oh, there was a question from Chinese Sangha. May I ask what advice does the teacher, meaning yourself, have for the patients suffering from depressions who have suicidal thoughts?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's kind of a generalized question, so it's hard for me to know. I mean, there's depression where it's like a clinical depression where you need treatment, and then there's ordinary sadness. And without knowing more, it's hard to. I'd be hesitant to give advice. I think the uh, there's I suppose like everything, there's like a depression that's so debilitating that you just have to have a psychiatric help or psychological help. And there's more ordinary depression, which is kind of a deep sadness. There's not the level of uh, uh, unable to function at all, but more of a down energy that can be worked with. Um, but we also have to acknowledge that sometimes when you're in the middle of depression, as far as I know from people I've been told, you just can't hear any of that stuff. Uh, you don't want to know any of that. So it depends on the friends being able to help you or partners or relationships. And when you can't actually, you're not in a situation you can deal. Um, so I'm not a psychologist, but there's all, there's a period of time where people felt that if you're a meditator, you shouldn't seek psychological help if you need it. But that changed, and I think that it's not like there's a magic cure for every illness, um, but it can help with any kind of difficult situation. Uh, but sometimes you need, medication or treatment to stabilize enough to be able to even work with your mind in the way that's necessary in meditation. So I don't know if the question is about someone with a friend with that, but we can be present for people in that state, and we can um, be able to help people who need help get help. But it's not an easy thing. So it's hard to know at what point.
Thank you for this answer. And we have a raised hand from Leah. You can unmute yourself, Leah.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, Judy. Thank you so much again. My question is related to last week about you mentioned that there are slogans for children, and I used to work with children, and I have a little kid, and I couldn't find any resource online. If you can maybe provide a link or a book that I could look up to.
Mm-hmm. There's there's a private school that was started in New York State by the students of Zongsar Kensei Rinpoche, and they had the children working with slogans and commenting on slogans and making up their own slogans. I could try to find resources to put in chat. I'm not sure exactly how to reach them. It was elementary school, and it was I just remember one of the I don't know, second grader or something talking about one of the slogans, and he's talking about is it don't middle way school, that's it, there it is, thank you, Anya. Yeah, so you can find out more how they worked with children. They've been doing it for several years now, and it's amazing what the children came up with, in terms of some of the slogans they really got, and some of them they made up were hilarious, like don't pick your nose in public or something like that. uh, yeah, that's at the middle way school. I forgot what it's called, but yeah, you should text them. They'd probably be happy to say something. And yeah, to you. How many children do you have?
Just one. But
Uh-huh.
I'm also interested of writing something. I'm an aspiring writer of Dharma. And from your work, I'm just really inspired, and especially with the with our talk today, and just the phrase of talking about rice is not cooking the rice. And
Uh-huh.
kind of that gave me the direction of maybe what I could do. But just from all the work that you do, maybe you have an advice or something to say about the path that you've done and all this knowledge, and maybe what you can share with someone like me who's just starting.
Mm-hmm. I know. I think one of the the things I love about slogan and slogan practice is they're all based on, or so many are based on learning from our mistakes. So that we change our view of what is a mistake. And sometimes in the mistake is the best learning. So the slogans are all based on, okay, what's the point of a slogan like "Don't wait in ambush" is one of the slogans when you say, "Oh, I think that's just what I was doing. I was just waiting to strike." Okay, and then it gives you a sense of it's not so personal. That somehow, 1,000 years ago, someone was still talking about the kind of things humans still do. All the kind of things, that transferring, the responsibility to others, waiting in anguish, being impatient, wanting to be the fastest, all these things. You think, oh, huh. Uh, how'd they know all this? I guess humans even back then they were the same. And so what are you going to do when you notice that? One approach would be to feel bad about yourself. Well, I'm a terrible person because I did this, I did that. Or you could transform how you relate to mistakes and saying, wait, what's in that? What's going on here? What's really behind it? And you can learn from those things and not be so much in a praise and blame, but more into curious and interested and actually appreciating that, if we didn't have someone to point it out to us what a jerk we were, then we wouldn't be able to learn about learn about that. But if we wouldn't notice it ourselves, but
Mm.
necessarily, so that's also true that the Mahayana is, as they keep saying, is about relationship, and we can help one another so much. Uh, so anyway,
Thank you for all you do.
yeah.
Maybe we can end with another question from the chat. Jasmina is asking, in the Buddhist context, the word love carries a profound meaning. Judy, I would be grateful to hear your perspective on this term and how you see its relationship with the paramitas.
Yes, actually, the word love is extremely important. A loving kindness, love, different kinds of love, and as is a positive kind of passion that's for passion for practice, passion for growth and learning. And love is, the paramitas are all about connection. You can't practice the paramitas by yourself that much. They're based on, others, relating with others and taking an interest in others and cultivating with that passion. I have a little quote I wanted to read, actually, which I forgot to read earlier. And this is, again, in the chapter on prajna. Maybe this will help. He's talking about prajna as cutting through our mistaken views, of how solid self and the mistaken views of duality, dualistic thinking, and also how prajna is exposing and helping us cut through negative emotions, conflicting emotions. They're called kleshas. So he said, with prajna, you cut methodically one situation after another. When you cut through your primitive beliefs about reality, that's duality, and your conflicting emotions, there is compassion. Emotions are very aggressive. So in order to cut through them, you need some kind of a cool moon, fresh water, iceberg. So prajna is automatically linked with compassion. And he says, the freshness of a cool mountain stream and the tenderness of a pigeon's heart are always connected. And I think that's a sense of love in Mahayana. The freshness of a cool mountain stream and the tenderness of a pigeon's heart. So that's it's kind of a powerful and tender metaphor. And it goes back again to that freshness. We're talking about freshness. So it's not kind of warm and gooey, but it's fresh, but it's also tender, that sense of love.
Thanks, Judy. That's a beautiful way to end this teaching today.
Great. So
Thank
keep working
you.
with the slogans. They're great. They never let you down, except they let you down all the time, but in a good way.
Judy, I can't thank you enough for coming and joining us in this class. There's such, I don't know how to describe it, just warmth, encouragement, good heart. And I just really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, I think on behalf of all of us for joining us and teaching us. And not only that, but thank you for all the incredible work you do to preserve and nurture and perpetuate these incredible teachings. So thank you from all of us.
It's an honor to be here with all of you and honor to know a little bit more about all that you've been doing with these Datuns all over the place. Multi-Datuns. That's great. Yeah.
Thank you. Judy, will you kindly just lead us in the dedication of merit?
Sure. By this merit may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may all beings be free. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may I too remain to alleviate the sufferings of the world. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Judy. Tashi, do you want to
Thank you very much.
invite
Thank you.
people
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
on the
Judy. Thank you very much.
Okay. Later then.
Thank
Okay.
you, all teacher. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Keep at it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you. See you next time.